The ear-splitting Level 1 alarm screams through Arlington Air Base like the gates of hell have opened. Four crimson dots race across the radar screen at supersonic speed, enemy jets closing in for the kill. In the chaos of the command center, Lieutenant Jackson's voice cracks with terror. Does anyone here know how to fly a fighter jet? Anyone? Dead silence. They're defenseless. Then someone finds an old, dusty military ID card fallen from a storage box. Captain Mara Devlin, Red Hawk Squadron, missing in action 2011. Every head turns toward the doorway where a woman in greasy coveralls appears, the same maintenance lady they've ignored for 14 years. I need 3 minutes, she says quietly. Get me to Hangar 9. For over a decade, Captain Mara Devlin has been the invisible ghost haunting Arlington Air Base. Every morning before dawn, her beaten pickup truck rolls through the security gates while the world still sleeps. Every evening after sunset, she's the last soul to leave, often working well past midnight on problems others ignore. The young soldiers call her the power station lady, with casual dismissiveness, treating her like a piece of equipment that occasionally needs attention. When they see her coming with her toolbox, they joke behind her back. Here comes trouble, something's about to break down again. She exists in plain sight yet remains completely unseen, moving through the base like a shadow with substance. Her personal file reads like a cure for insomnia: contract engineer, unremarkable background, deliberately boring credentials that discourage deeper investigation. She repairs underground power lines that keep the base functioning, maintains radar systems that rarely see action, and methodically cleans the American flag when dust accumulates on its fabric. Nobody notices her dedication. Nobody thinks to thank her for keeping their world operational. She's become furniture with legs, just another face blending into the routine of forgotten military life. Only Lieutenant Colonel Hank, an older man with gray temples who works in the dusty records department, occasionally looks at her with something deeper than casual recognition. Something flickers in his weathered eyes, like he's trying to remember an important detail that dances just beyond his mental grasp. But even he can't quite place where he might have seen those steel gray eyes before, or why her precise economical movements seem so familiar. The base has settled into comfortable predictability over the years, peaceful, routine, completely forgotten by the outside world and the military hierarchy that once considered it strategically vital. Then one seemingly ordinary morning in late May, the impossible happens. The main radar station detects 4 unidentified jet signatures aggressively penetrating restricted airspace exactly 19 nautical miles from the base and closing fast with obvious hostile intent. These aren't commercial aircraft that wandered off course or weekend pilots making navigation errors. The signatures move too fast, too coordinated, too deliberately to be anything but a professional attack formation designed to rain destruction on everyone below. The command center erupts into complete pandemonium as officers realize the horrifying truth that's been building for over a decade. The entire defense system has been systematically downgraded, stripped of resources, and forgotten by Washington bureaucrats who redirected funding to more active theaters of operation. Real combat pilots were transferred to Iraq and Afghanistan years ago, leaving behind only support staff, weekend warriors, and peacetime administrators who've never faced genuine life-or-death combat situations. Their most advanced weapons are gathering dust in hangars, their runways are cracked with weeds, and their emergency protocols exist only in outdated manuals that nobody has referenced in years. Lieutenant Jackson, barely 30 years old and sweating through his uniform like he's in a sauna, frantically searches through personnel files while shouting desperately to anyone who will listen, "We need pilots. Actual combat pilots. Does anyone here know how to fly an F-Series fighter jet under combat conditions? Anyone at all?" The question hangs in the air like a death sentence as every face in the room reflects the same terrifying realization. They're completely, utterly, catastrophically unprepared for what's bearing down on them at supersonic speed. Every personnel file they check shows the same devastating pattern. Logistics coordinators, maintenance specialists, administrative clerks, communications technicians, supply managers, and part-time National Guard members whose most dangerous experience involves weekend training exercises with rubber bullets and blank ammunition. Not a single person on this entire base possesses the specialized training, combat experience, or current certification needed to operate advanced military aircraft in hostile situations. They might as well be facing down a pack of wolves armed with nothing but harsh language and good intentions. The radar operator's voice crackles through the communication system with increasing urgency. 8 minutes to target, sir. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it right now. 8 minutes until hundreds of lives are snuffed out by an enemy they can't fight, can't escape, and can't reason with. 8 minutes until Arlington Air Base becomes a smoking crater in the ground, its personnel reduced to statistical casualties in someone else's strategic objectives. That's when Private Martinez, a 22-year-old maintenance worker frantically searching through emergency supply boxes, accidentally knocks over a dusty storage container that's been sitting undisturbed for over a decade. Among the scattered papers and forgotten documents, one item catches the fluorescent light in a way that makes him look twice: a faded military identification card with edges worn smooth by time and handling. He picks it up with trembling fingers and reads words that seem impossible. Captain Mara Devlin, Red Hawk Squadron, missing in action 2011. Private Martinez stares at the photograph on the ID card, a younger version of the woman everyone knows as the quiet maintenance engineer, but wearing a flight suit with pilot wings gleaming on her chest and a confidence in her eyes that speaks of someone who has stared death in the face and emerged victorious. The pieces of an impossible puzzle suddenly click together in his mind as he realizes that for 14 years, they've had a ghost walking among them. Someone who was supposed to be dead, someone whose very existence has been erased from official records. He runs through the corridors of the command center like his hair is on fire, clutching the ID card against his chest, bursting through doors with the kind of desperation that comes from holding the only key to survival. Sir, I found something in storage. You need to see this immediately. He thrusts the ID card into Lieutenant Colonel Hank's hands, and watches as the older man's weathered face transforms from confusion to recognition to absolute shock in the span of 3 heartbeats. Lieutenant Colonel Hank's hands begin shaking as memories flood back like a dam breaking, memories of the most elite fighter squadron ever assembled, of pilots who could make aircraft perform impossible maneuvers, of a woman who flew missions so classified that their details are still locked in vaults somewhere in Washington. His voice comes out as barely more than a whisper. Dear God in heaven. Red Hawk 3? I thought you were killed in Afghanistan. We all thought you were dead and buried. The room falls into the kind of absolute silence that precedes either salvation or catastrophe. Every eye turns toward the doorway as if collectively summoned by an invisible force, and there she stands, Mara Devlin, still wearing her standard-issue engineer coveralls stained with grease and electrical tape, her hair pulled back in the same practical ponytail she's worn every day for 14 years. She looks exactly like the maintenance worker everyone has always assumed she was, except now there's something different in her posture, something that speaks of coiled power and deadly competence. The impossible truth crashes over them like a tidal wave. This quiet woman they've treated like invisible support staff, someone they barely acknowledged as human, someone whose contributions they've taken for granted every single day, was once a legendary warrior pilot who had vanished from the world. She's been hiding among them like a guardian angel, maintaining their equipment, fixing their problems, keeping their world operational while concealing an identity that could have brought her fame, recognition, and respect at any point during the past 14 years. She nods once with the kind of military precision that cuts through chaos like a blade, her voice carrying an authority that nobody has ever heard from her before. I need exactly 3 minutes to prepare. Get me to Hangar 9 immediately. There's no hesitation, no discussion, no time for explanations or disbelief. The enemy aircraft are now 7 minutes away from turning Arlington Air Base into a memorial, and their only hope for survival stands before them wearing coveralls and work boots, carrying secrets that could save their lives. The devastating irony hits everyone present like a physical blow to the solar plexus. For 14 long years, they've had a combat veteran living among them, someone with skills that exist only in the realm of legend, someone who has faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. They've ignored her, dismissed her, treated her like a piece of equipment that occasionally needed maintenance. The woman they called the power station lady behind her back, the one they barely acknowledged when she walked past, the person they assumed had no value beyond her ability to fix broken machinery, she's literally their only hope for survival. She runs with the focused determination of someone returning home after a long exile, her work boots echoing against concrete as she races toward Hangar 9 where the experimental X-92 Phoenix sits covered in dust and neglect. This is the same advanced aircraft that Red Hawk Squadron had been the first to test in live combat conditions over a decade ago, a machine so sophisticated that its capabilities remain classified even today. The hangar doors swing open like the gates of salvation, revealing an aircraft that most people have never seen and fewer still know how to operate. A young maintenance soldier, his face pale with fear and disbelief, asks the question that everyone is thinking. Ma'am, can you actually still fly that thing after all these years? It's a reasonable question. Combat flying is a skill that requires constant practice, split-second reflexes, and physical conditioning that deteriorates without regular maintenance. Most pilots who've been away from active duty for even a few years require extensive retraining before they're cleared for combat operations. Mara pauses at the hangar entrance, and for the first time in 14 years, her voice carries the weight of hidden truth, the authority of someone who has stared death in the face countless times and never blinked. I never stopped being a pilot. I just learned to serve in different ways. The sky never forgets, and neither do I. There's something in her tone that suggests this moment has been inevitable, that every day of the past 14 years has been preparation for exactly this scenario. She steps into the dimly lit hangar with the confidence of someone entering their own home, strips off her grease-stained maintenance coveralls with practiced efficiency, revealing an old flight jumpsuit underneath that she's apparently worn every day like a second skin. The faded Red Hawk 3 badge is still proudly pinned to her chest, its edges worn smooth by time and hidden devotion, a reminder of who she truly is beneath the carefully constructed facade of anonymity. She runs her experienced hands along the Phoenix's sleek hull like she's greeting an old friend, her fingers checking every surface, every joint, every component with the thoroughness that only comes from years of intimate knowledge and muscle memory that never truly fades. This isn't someone trying to remember how to operate unfamiliar equipment. This is someone reconnecting with an extension of herself, a machine that responds to her touch like a perfectly tuned instrument. Nobody else on the base remembers how to manually start this sophisticated aircraft after so many years of neglect and bureaucratic oversight. The startup procedures for the X-92 Phoenix are classified, complex, and unforgiving. One mistake could result in catastrophic system failure or worse. But the woman they thought was just a maintenance worker climbs into the cockpit like she's putting on a favorite jacket, her fingers finding controls by pure instinct, entering the classified pilot code MX-H3 with the confidence of someone who has done this thousands of times before. Systems that have been dormant for over a decade suddenly roar back to life with electronic harmony, displays lighting up in cascading sequences of green and amber, engines cycling through diagnostic checks that confirm what everyone is beginning to understand: this aircraft hasn't been abandoned at all. Someone has been maintaining it, keeping it flight-ready, ensuring that every system operates at peak efficiency. That someone has been the quiet woman in coveralls who everyone assumed knew nothing about advanced military technology. A nervous young crew chief frantically opens the massive doors to runway 2, a strip of concrete that's been in use for over 12 years, with weeds growing through cracks in the asphalt and painted lines faded by weather and neglect. It's not the ideal conditions for launching a combat mission, but it's what they have, and it will have to be enough. The Phoenix's engines scream to life with a sound that hasn't echoed across Arlington Air Base in over a decade, a sound that represents hope, determination, and the return of a warrior who was never truly gone. Meanwhile, the invading aircraft have closed to immediate attack range, exactly 6 minutes until they reach target destruction distance and begin raining death on the defensible base below. 6 minutes until hundreds of innocent lives are extinguished by an enemy whose motivations nobody understands and whose capabilities nobody can match. With no air traffic control support, no radar guidance, no wingman backup, and no communication with higher command, Mara prepares to take off completely alone against impossible odds that would terrify seasoned combat veterans with decades of experience. The Phoenix rolls down the forgotten runway, gathering speed with each passing second, its engines building to a crescendo that drowns out the alarm sirens and emergency communications. For the first time in 14 years, a fighter jet launches from Arlington Air Base, rising into the morning sky like a phoenix from ashes, carrying with it the hopes and prayers of everyone who watches from below. This isn't just a military operation. This is resurrection, redemption, and the return of someone who has spent 14 years preparing for exactly this moment. The aerial battle begins with deadly precision as Mara locks onto the first enemy target, using advanced cloud layer blind spot tactics that exist only in classified training manuals and the memories of elite pilots. She disappears into weather formations and reappears at angles that deceive sophisticated radar systems, employing techniques that no computer simulation could ever replicate because they require intuition, experience, and a level of skill that can't be taught in any classroom or training program. 3 enemy aircraft find themselves completely overwhelmed by flying skills that exist only in the realm of natural talent combined with years of real combat experience. These aren't weekend pilots or recent academy graduates. These are seasoned professionals who have trained for years to execute this mission. But they're facing someone who operates on a different level entirely, someone who understands aerial combat not as a technical exercise but as an art form that requires perfect harmony between pilot, machine, and environment. In just 4 minutes of aerial combat that feels like hours to everyone watching from below, Mara downs 2 enemy jets with surgical precision, her movements so fluid and confident that they seem almost choreographed. She forces a third aircraft to retreat with critical damage, its pilot probably wondering what kind of supernatural force they've encountered over this supposedly defenseless base. But the final aircraft, though mortally wounded and trailing smoke, continues its desperate kamikaze run straight toward Arlington Air Base in a last-ditch attempt to complete its destructive mission. This is the moment that separates legends from ordinary pilots. Mara pushes the Phoenix into an impossible 85-degree vertical climb that would crush most pilots with G-forces that exceed human endurance, inverts at the peak in a maneuver that defies physics and common sense, then dives at terminal velocity to intercept the incoming missile in midair. The precision required for this shot exists only in the realm of legend. She has one chance, one moment, one opportunity to prevent catastrophe. The Phoenix's weapons system locks onto the incoming threat with mechanical precision, but it's Mara's experience, intuition, and unwavering determination that guides the shot. The enemy aircraft explodes in a massive fireball that lights up the morning sky, its debris raining down harmlessly in empty fields far from the base. The threat is neutralized, the mission is complete, but the Phoenix has been pushed beyond its design limits. The aircraft makes a catastrophic emergency landing on the damaged runway, engines glowing cherry red hot from overexertion, warning systems screaming electronic protests, smoke pouring from overheated components that were never designed for such extreme stress. But it holds together long enough to deliver its pilot safely to the ground, a testament to both advanced engineering and the skill of someone who knows exactly how far she can push a machine before it breaks. Mara climbs out of the cockpit with deliberate calm, thick black smoke swirling around her like battle fog, her eyes filled with concrete dust and determination, but her back ramrod straight with the pride of someone who has just saved hundreds of lives. She doesn't celebrate, doesn't seek recognition, doesn't demand acknowledgement for what she's accomplished. She simply walks away from the smoking aircraft as if she's just completed another routine maintenance task. Everyone on the base stands in respectful silence, finally understanding who has been walking among them for 14 years. Lieutenant Colonel Hank approaches with trembling hands and presents her with the Red Hawk 1 badge, the highest squadron honor that has never before been awarded to any pilot in the unit's entire history. You're the only Red Hawk pilot to survive Afghanistan, and now you're our new squadron commander if you'll accept the position. But Mara's response surprises everyone. She respectfully declines the offered promotion and all the ceremony that would come with it, quietly requesting to remain at the base exactly as before, continuing her humble work in maintenance and repair, serving without fanfare or recognition, just as she has for 14 years. "I'm not a legend or a hero," she says simply. "I'm just the right person who happened to be in the right place at the right time and chose not to turn away when others needed help." This moment represents something far more significant than one person's individual heroism or personal redemption. This is about recognizing the heroes who are already walking among us every single day, the people who serve quietly without seeking recognition, who maintain our world while asking for nothing in return. For 14 years, Mara had been preparing for this moment without even knowing she was preparing. Every wire she repaired, every system she maintained, every problem she solved was training that kept her skills sharp for when her country needed her most. The final lesson echoes through the corridors of Arlington Air Base and beyond. Never underestimate the person sitting quietly in the corner, because they might have flown higher than anyone else in the room, fought battles you can't imagine, or carried burdens that would break most people. The maintenance worker might be a former fighter pilot, the quiet person in the corner might be carrying wisdom and experience that could save your life. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply say thank you to someone who never asked for recognition, because the heroes among us are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment when their skills are needed most.